can't tell them. Still okay. All right. Looks like we're live. Um, I welcome everybody to another live stream from the Christian Comic Arts Society. My name is Joffrey Strout, and today we're joined by some of the leaders from the Geeky Guys for God ministry. We'll be talking a little bit about how their ministry works to help people better connect with God through pop culture and creativity, and there's probably other dimensions to that I don't know about. So I'll just let them describe it. Welcome, guys.
Hi, thank you.
So we're just trying to recognize that there are other ministries besides us that are ministering to people in the geek culture, and we thought, and we know some people who are connected with you guys as well, so we thought we'd bring you on and just let you guys share what you guys do. Do you want to describe what Geeky Guys for God is, and where you guys came from, things like that?
Sure. So the Geeky Guys for God started in 2012. It initially began as a men's connection ministry our home church is the church at Rancho Bernardo, which is in San Diego. With the thought of when me and our other founder, Kevin Hickok, we started it, we noticed people around the church that were, wearing Green Lantern t-shirts and, things like that. And a lot of it came out of the Awana program that I was a leader at. So I saw a lot of the Awana program, and we had a lot of conversations about Star Wars and, Batman and things like that. So the thought was, well, what if this became a men's ministry where we could connect with people, we could go to movies together, we could go to Comic-Con together, we could do a monthly Bible study together. And so that's kind of the genesis of the beginning of how it all started. And basically our motto has always been assembling for Jesus in truth, fellowship, and service. So we're always wanting to focus on the truth, having a monthly Bible study, always want to focus on having some type of service element going and fellowship, and that's kind of the geek nerd culture is fellowship, and a lot of people are extrovert or introverts, and so trying to connect with those people that do believe in God and also love Pokemon, or whatever type of pop culture. And so we started doing a monthly meeting in March of 2012. Well, within the first month was WonderCon, which is in Anaheim. And we made these loud orange shirts that said Geeky Guys for God on them. And the focus of that was I wanted them to kind of stand out. So wherever we were. So my son and I went up there for the weekend, and we wore our shirts and we walked around, and we walked by a table called the Christian Comic Arts Society table. We met Ralph for the first time. And I mean, we've known Ralph pretty much. We've connected with you guys pretty much since we started. And our relationship has just grown, through the Alpha MegaCon and participating in panels at Comic-Con with you guys. And so that's kind of how it started. And we started picking movies to go to. And when we first started, there was a guy in our group who was his wife was looking to start a food drive at the church that was our home church. And she needed bodies to, collect the food on one Sunday a month. And so I thought, well, this is perfect. This is, a service project right out of the gate. This is food that's going to food bank. And it's really kind of at the core of what we want to be about, and a lot of us like costumes and all those kinds of things, and those kind of have evolved through the years, but that was our initial project. And we'd been doing that food drive pretty much until the pandemic started. It changed names at one point, but, we were collecting monthly food drive for our local food banks, which has been an awesome experience because that's going right back out to serve the people in need. And we've done lots of movie events through the years. First Avengers was, when they were releasing the Star Wars movies in 3D. There was episode 1 was in 3D, and we actually I won't say well, strong word, but got one of our pastors to come and go at midnight to see this movie, see episode 1 and the pod races and everything in 3D. And it just, we started to, originally the group was going to be called Fanboys for Christ. And our church at the time was doing a church-wide Bible study called Not a Fan. And in that Bible study, it's basically focusing on get out of the seats, get on the field and play the game, and don't just be a fan of God, but do his work. And so church leadership was like, well, I don't know if Fanboys for Christ is a good group to be starting when we're doing a Bible study called Not a Fan. So the other lead founder said, well, how about Geeky Guys for God? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that works. So GG4G is a good acronym, and we ran with it. And then, we started connecting with people and doing events together, and we just kind of started to get into the cosplay a little and we started partnering with the Sunday school. Once a year, they would have in October, they'd have superhero month. And so we would, we either make the costumes or bring, this church would buy the costumes, and we'd have a different superhero there each weekend. And sometimes the Bible study would connect for the kids to that superhero. And a lot of times the parents and the adults are actually happier to see the superheroes in the lobby before service started than the adults or than the kids, which kind of, really is what our group's about, right? And so, we've been doing our thing, doing Comic-Con. We started doing, in addition to doing panels with you guys, we started doing a water event every year at Comic-Con on Saturdays. And the thought of that was, we're just gonna get 1,000 water bottles, and we're gonna get them iced, and we're gonna have somebody drive them down. And how hard it is to get through Comic-Con traffic, but down with the coolers, drop them, and come back an hour later and collect the empty ones. And that's been a very popular event. We've met people on a Friday night at the Mixer, the Christian Comic Mixer, and they've come to the water event on Saturday afternoon. And it's been a great bonding experience. So then fast forward, we started doing the Alpha Mega Con from the start, and we met a guy at our panel named Steve Frome. And years later, Steve decided he wanted to start a second group in Anaheim. So we have a second group up in Orange County. And so they kind of are more into the gaming and stuff, and we're more into the cosplay and things like that. And right in that area as well, here at Awana, one of our Awana leaders, friend of mine, she's like, I really think that we always wanted to have a gals group. But we were worried. The only thing that was a concern for me was if we have a guys group and guys want to share something sensitive, they might not be comfortable sharing with women. So we thought, okay, well, maybe we can have 2 different groups going and then partner together to do movie event, partner together to go Comic-Con, things like that. So Nicole Edmonds started the gals group. She said, it's on my heart. This is an Awana evening telling me it's on my heart to start the gals group. I said, okay, well, let's go. So we start the gals group, and for about.
So if I can interrupt him real quick there, because behind the scenes, God was doing other work. I have a long history of costuming, and I do ministry with theater groups around town. Usually it's the children's theater or high school theater, doing costuming for them. I've always been kind of a geek, but didn't really have an outlet for it. And I don't remember what year it was. The Anaheim
2015.
Star Wars convention was there with another geeky gal. And you're sitting in line for long hours, and we're sitting in line with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we're all just sitting there chatting. And someone comes by and hands out a little card about there being a church service at the Star Wars celebration. And so me and my girlfriend are like, hey, they got church service. That's kind of cool. And Obi-Wan's like, yeah, it's really cool. You should come. I'm going to go. So we're all chatting and we're all getting excited and we show up. Well, Obi-Wan didn't tell us that he was delivering a message at the service, but they're there and there's Obi-Wan in full costume delivering the message at the church service. So we were so excited. And afterwards we're chatting with everybody and we're like, where do you guys all get together? I mean, how do you blend your geekiness and your love for Christ? And somebody said, oh, there's a group. I think they're in San Diego, but I'm not really sure. I think it's like Church of Rancho Bernardo or something like that. And, since I'm from San Diego, I'm like, I know that church. I know people that go to that church. So I started emailing them. I probably emailed them like 10 times. I have a geeky group. I heard you have a geeky group. And finally somebody responded, and I'm sure it was because they're like, we don't have anything for women. And finally somebody responded and said, well, we don't have anything for women. It's a guy's ministry, but you never know what might happen. And so my girlfriend and I, we're all into doing cosplay and trying to find a group that we could go enjoy movies with. And God answered prayers. And I didn't know Joe at the time. I didn't know Nicole, but I was very excited to get the email that said, there is now a women's geeky group at Church of Rancho Bernardo. And started going. And I think two of my friends who were women started going. And then I'll let Joe pick it up from there again.
Yeah. And so Nicole started the group, and she did a great job. And then she was also directing one of the Awana programs, the smaller kids, and it became too much for her. And so that at that point, that was the decision was pretty much made that, okay, well, we're going to merge the groups. Because my only hesitation, like I said, was, something sensitive. And in the 5 years or so, we had never gotten down a road that was of anybody talking about something sensitive that would not have been, okay to talk about amongst everybody. And so that was, I won't say probably, but that was the best decision of the group, moving forward, because we've, relationships, Christian relationships are important. And, Jeannie's family and my family have grown close, and on another level, it's not just the costuming, but it's just, and things like that. It's just growing in Christ and growing and having support and having people you can rely on and pray for you and, help you out when you're in difficult times. And so the gals, it was awesome. We merged, and then other things started working. We were still doing the superhero month once a year. And then our church started doing CRV at the movies in the summertime. So they'd have a movie themed message for about 4 weeks or 6 weeks during the summer. And one year they wanted to do, it was going to be an Avengers theme. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go. So we had like 6 or 7 Avengers for that, just people in the lobby. And it was awesome. And we'd have, different characters every weekend. And then the last time they did it a couple of years ago, we were able to get a couple cars in there. So like we had the DeLorean one weekend, we had the Ghostbuster car one weekend, and
Wait, people actually had those cars?
Well, so we just reached out. So there's a guy that started attending the group initially. His name is Brian Fear, and he owns a Ghostbuster car with another guy.
Oh, wow.
Brian has always told me, and when the Ghostbuster car is operational, because the Ghostbuster car is an old type of model car, and so when it breaks down, it's hard to replace it, and it gets very costly over the years, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Brian has been so gracious to us whenever and I'm very conservative on when I ask him. He's come a couple times to the church because I don't want to overburden him, and I don't want to ask for him, because I believe, we want to be special, and we also, don't want to put too much on his plate either. And so we had the Ghostbuster car, and then, there's another guy, and one of our guys in group, Josh, he reached out to this guy that had the DeLorean and just said, "Hey, would you be willing to bring the car for Sunday services?" And the guy said, "Sure." And it all set up, and it was, all cherried out, and people had a blast, and we had a couple people dress up as Marty and Doc and walking around, and
Nice.
it was awesome, right? And then through those types of ones, a guy in our group named Terrence, he dresses up as Hulk, and he's a short guy, but he puts this Hulk costume on, and he's like a different person. He's fist bumping kids, and he just turns on this different personality that you wouldn't think is him when he's not in this Hulk costume.
Yeah.
We have he was doing one of these at the movie events as Hulk, and a friend of his in another group who is the leader of the meal. The church does a meals at Ronald McDonald House every month, one Saturday a month.
Oh, that's cool.
So they're like, we should come in costume and be there as support for the kids. And this guy was like, yeah, you guys should. And so that just kind of, we merged with this other group for this. And so we manage this kids table with, we bring activities for the kids, but we usually have a handful of costume characters there. And on Star Wars May the 4th, 2 years ago, we bought a couple of they were radio flyer land speeders. We got them on clearance at Toys R Us. And so we took them there and we set up this little track outside. The kids could ride in these land speeders around the track. And so it was actually a night where the Ronald McDonald House, I think, had some sponsors or people that were like donating. And so they were there, I'm in my full Stormtrooper armor, and we've got, Jedis and Kylo Ren, and I think helped them as well. Not unintentionally, but they saw what a great thing it was. And, we've been blessed to be able to do that. Obviously we haven't been able to do it because of the pandemic, but we're hoping in the next couple months, we'll be able to start doing that again, because we were doing that once a month as well, which is, again, back to the service part of it, right? And then moving up to, today, that's kind of us in a nutshell. We're always trying to partner with other groups and other organizations, Christian or not, because we think it's just important to show God's love however way. I don't need to come and tell you, talk at you, as a Christian and whatever. I just need to show you God's love, and whatever, that can be just saying hello and wearing a cool costume. And, when the opportunities are there to talk about God, then God's going to open those doors for us. Mm-hmm. We haven't been able to do much, but I work for a probation department, a federal probation department, and you probably heard of it. It's all over. They call them Shop with the Cop. They do them at Christmas time, and generally they're a huge event in the big towns where underprivileged kids get to go to either Target or somewhere, and they shop with a police officer, and the officers have collected money through donations through the years so that they can take children who wouldn't get a Christmas and take them shopping, and then take them to see. Here it's take them to SeaWorld. Other places probably different, but because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do what we normally do, and our office participated with it. So they ended up branching out the different law enforcement groups together. Like we were lumped with the downtown police department. And so I was like, hey, why don't we get costume characters there? Because the kids are going to get their gifts, but, not going to get to go shopping. They're not going to get to go to SeaWorld. And so the committee was like, yeah, you guys should do that. So I reached out to our group, but then I also reached out to the San Diego Star Wars Society. And I know a lot of the leadership over there because I'm a member of that group. And I was like, hey, Shop with the Cops next week. You guys want to partner with us and, make this, Christmas special for these kids. And, 8 or 10 or 12 of them were like, oh yeah, of course. So we have this nice event downtown, and we were there in costume for a couple hours, and they had the kids coming every 15 minutes, for safety's sake, and so the kids all got to have pictures and get their Christmas gifts, and so I think it helped spread a little love, and it also gave us opportunity to talk to a few of the cosplayers in the Star Wars Society, because between kids you're sitting there talking, and there's people there that might be interested in being a part of what we're doing, in addition to the clubs they participate in, because they're Christians. And so that's an example of a non-Christian groups we're trying to partner with. And another one was, I don't know if you've heard of Magic Wheelchair. So a few years ago, Magic Wheelchair is a organization that people build costume wheelchairs for kids who have disabilities. And so we had seen them and had our eye on them for a while, and we saw them at Comic-Con the last time Comic-Con was in person, and they had a nice booth set up with some of their cool wheelchairs. And we're like, this is something we got to be a part of. This is just too cool. So, yeah, about 2 years ago, I think it was, we got the call from them, and we had a little girl who lives about 45 minutes from here, an hour from here, and she loved, was interested in a wheelchair, her mom and dad, and so we went up there, met with them, and we kind of gauged interests, and we ended up building a Princess Ariel chair where it looks like she's sitting on the rock with the fin.
Oh, wow.
The front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was awesome about that, it wasn't just like our normal people in our group, but like Jeannie had a few friends from one of her old churches. One guy's like an engineer, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll build the fin so it make it flap. It's like, I'll create a flounder, which was, if you saw this flounder, you would have said, oh my gosh, that's like a movie prop, because it was awesome. And then Jeannie was like, well, the daughter can't just be the only one who get costumes. So Jeannie, this master seamstress, says, mom and dad need to get costumes too. So she made an Ursula, and asked mom, well, who would you, because mom was really into the Disney villains, and she wanted a Disney villain chair, but she was like, no, I want a princess. And so Jeannie says, okay, well, let's make mom an Ursula. And so Jeannie made this awesome Ursula dress. It was incredible. And then Eric, Prince Eric, made the fancy jacket and the pants and stuff. And it was just awesome. And then we had another friend, Star Wars friend, who lived up in the area. He was a photographer. And I called him and I said, hey, well, first of all, we contacted the Disney store and said, hey, can we do the unveiling of this in front of your store? And so after they made sure we got approval to be able to do it, because it's Disney. And they said, yeah, you can do it in front of our store. And so then I contact this friend of mine, the photographer, and say, hey, I know you like to take pictures, cosplay photography. You want to come do this? And it's like, of course. Who doesn't want to take pictures, special pictures of a girl with her, special wheelchair? And so that came together, and it was, another just example of, doing the things we like to do, and using our time, our talents in that way, utilizing our costumes. We've been participated in a few free comic book days, partnered with a couple of comic book shops here, and we have a giant Groot costume that's won a few awards and things, and we brought.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's huge.
Yeah. And so, any ways to kind of bring a smile at the face, and then when those opportunities are there. The other cool thing about Ronald McDonald House is we've been able to pray with people in costume. People are willing to, the parents are across the street, the Ronald McDonald House. They kind of got like a makeshift apartment, or, their son or daughter's in the hospital. Yeah. So a lot of times the parents would come up with their phone, FaceTime, hey, look who's here. They'd be showing them the characters that were there, and then they have their younger siblings or older siblings that are there as well. But it's just, and then a few times, there's been that opportunity where we've asked hey, do you mind if we pray for you? And it's been awesome just to sit there in costume and pray, because I mean, there are so many awesome costume groups out there. There's the 501st. Here, there's the Star Wars Society and the Sci-Fi Coalition. But we're one of the we're a group that we're Christian based, and we can pray with somebody and give them another outlet to pray in a kind of a non-threatening way. And it was just an awesome experience to be able to do that, because you think, oh man, I mean, someone on the outside might say, oh, that's kind of silly, but it's not, because it's real. You're in a moment. These parents you're getting a smile out of these parents whose son may be going through something that any parent's nightmare. And just that 1 minute of a smile and then 1 minute of feeling God's presence by praying with them is important. It's important to know that their child is loved by God, and God's going to watch over them, and the surgeon, the doctor's taking care of them. And so it just really adds a layer to our group. We like to just be silly. We, a handful of us participate in the San Diego Comic-Con masquerade as ourselves. We don't, masquerade as the Geeky Guys and Gals for God or anything, but that's something we enjoy doing. But we're using those talents. We take those costumes after we've competed with them, and then we plug them in somewhere else, and it's important. And, whether it's we're wearing them at events, or we give them to someone else to wear at events, or, I mean, it's just kind of showing God's love in that way. So
it is amazing. What's different about this group is that our focus is Christ. And so because our focus is Christ first, and he made us geeky, it means that when we're out and about doing whatever fun thing we're doing, we are looking for those opportunities to share God's love, whether it be overtly, like praying for people, or just being us and being friendly, or showing God's love in very practical ways, whether it's helping. So we've actually helped with some, donations, the food drives, the things like that. There's been a couple military events that we've helped support, either by going and, waving at kids while they drive by because of the pandemic, or, making some donations of diapers and diaper wipes, whatever it is. We are always looking for those opportunities to show Christ's love in whatever we're doing. And we're also looking for those opportunities that God puts in front of us. I think that's one of the things I love about our group is when we pray before we go into wherever we're going, we're looking for what divine appointments has God got waiting for us. And it is always amazing to me, the divine appointment God puts in front of us. There was one time at Ronald McDonald House. So my very best friend from when I was 9 years old growing up, she happens to be Orthodox Jewish. And so the lifestyle of an Orthodox Jewish person is very well known to me, very comfortable. And we went to Ronald McDonald House one time, and there was a little girl there, and I noticed her mom was very isolated. She wasn't participating. She let her little girl color or things like that, but she wasn't really interacting with very many people. So I introduced myself, and turned out her name was the exact same name as my very best friend. And we got to talking, and it turned out she was Orthodox Jewish, which meant that there was a lot of restrictions. She couldn't feed her daughter a snack because it was Saturday. And she couldn't, go on her phone to tell her family that her daughter was all right. Her daughter had fallen out of a window and gotten a concussion. So there on Sabbath, they had rushed her to the hospital. There was like no way that she could communicate with her family, no way that she could get food that was appropriate for her and her daughter to eat. And they were stuck there under observation for the entire day. And so it was such a blessing for me to be there and to just be able to say, I understand, not a problem. we're going to take care of that for you. And so we were able to get her kosher food to at least snack on with her and her daughter. And then as it turned out, she didn't live that very far away from where I lived. And so it was summertime and it was not going to be sunset till very late. She wasn't going to be able to call her husband. And even if she did, it was going to be another half hour, 45 minutes before he was going to be able to come pick her up. And I said, I'll just take you home when it's sunset. You can call your husband. I'll look up when sunset is, so we'll know exactly when you could call him, and I'll take you home. Not a big deal. Divine appointment. I mean, to me, it was this person God appointed in my life for that one day so that she could feel comfortable in that situation. She didn't have to explain herself to anybody. She didn't have to feel bad about explaining her religious traditions, her religious beliefs at all. I was just like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Not a problem.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Things you couldn't design them unless
No.
you knew all the things, which we don't. Yeah,
And
that's amazing.
And then moving forward, so we decided that, well, we've gotten to a point where it's probably time to become a nonprofit organization. We pretty much have done this ministry for 8 years at that point on no budget. Like we get a few donations, and the church would help us with, the waters for Comic-Con and things like that, or someone else would donate we could do patches and things like that. So people would contribute for patches, but we were like, if we really want to go to another level and, people want to help, and we're a nonprofit, and maybe we can get to other cons, maybe we can get to do other things in other communities. The natural next step is become a nonprofit organization, which we did shortly before the pandemic started. So now that we're starting to come out of this, it'll be fun opportunities to move forward and start doing some things as a nonprofit organization that we hadn't been able to do because of the pandemic. And so that's an awesome experience. And one of the other things that's really what I think is great through the years too is, I've touched on, partnering with the Christian Comic Arts Society and some other organizations. But one I did not touch on was Hector, who does the Faith and Fandom books. So Hector does, we use his books for pretty much all our Bible studies. We have been doing that for 5 years or so. And, I reached out to Hector many years ago and started just connecting with him. And this is what's important about connecting with other people. I live in San Diego. Hector lives in North Carolina. We don't cross paths at a con or anything because we live so far away from each other.
Yeah.
I explained to him what we were doing, and we've been using a few different books at that point. Hector graciously gave us PDFs on a lot of his books, and said, share amongst your group. And that's kind of like with you guys, that's our friendship and building a relationship. And so a few years ago, it was on my heart, Hector's in North Carolina. We got to get him to San Diego Comic-Con. Come on. He's going to all these cons on the East Coast and supporting God. I think he needs to be on the bigger stage with us, And so I shared it with my group and I shared it with Ralph. This is on my heart to get this to happen. And so we had a person in our group who donated the funds for his airline ticket. We had a second person who basically let him stay, transported him to and from the con, and Ralph got him a ticket and got him, be a part of the panels with the rest of us. And I think it was just a blessing it was such a blessing on so many different levels. Hector, and I think he's been, we talked in some of these types of things with you guys, and when we did the America thing, he is an awesome guy and such a representative of God and love, and to be on those panels with him was really a blessing to me. We had great times, and we had one specific moment on one of the panels, and Jeannie knows about this one, and I like to talk about it because we were you know, it was the Sunday morning mixer, and we were having conversation, and someone raised their hand and asked, do you remember what the question was, Jeannie?
I think she asked where a place is in the Christian geek world for somebody like her.
Huh.
And one of the other panelists was kind of heading down a road that was probably gonna not be perceived as loving. And then Hector stepped in and he just said, I want to give you a hug. And he just poured his heart out about, I just know that God loves you. God loves everyone. That was kind of, I mean, I don't know, this is just, you know, this is not a direct quote for him, but it was just like, he was at the con, like Jeannie was talking about being at that
Divine
place at the right, divine appointment, right? Where he was there to answer that woman's question, to hear when Jesus loves you, where you're at, whoever you think you are, and whoever you think that Jesus doesn't love you or whatever, he does.
It's great about bringing the gospel message down to its very basic level. And that is, we all sin. It doesn't matter. Your sin does not define you. Christ loves you. He loves you as a person. And, you know, don't let your sin define you. Whatever you think your sin is, it's not going to prevent Christ from loving you. And then he was the embodiment of that message. And that was just an amazing, amazing moment.
It was awesome. That was awesome. You know, and I think that that's really, for us as a group, and for you guys as a group, is, I think us moving forward is we need to find the other Hectors, and we need to find, and they need to find us, and we need to connect together, and we need to, you know, build this kind of group, so when we're out and about at cons, that we're supporting each other in whatever way we can, you know, whether it's in, you know, up in Washington State or Texas or North Carolina or wherever, we need to be supporting each other in any ways that we have the capability of doing. And I think that, I mean, an example of what, you know, Ralph did, you guys did for us just starting out, it wasn't, you know, we just introduced each other and then it was just a friendship, you know, for almost 10 years now. I mean, it just, you know, I get a birthday text from Ralph every year, you know, and he's just, I mean, he just embodies all what you guys are about and what we're about. It's just the love. And just teaming with it, you know, like, and Hector, we wanted to do the same thing that Ralph did for us, you know, open the arms and just, you know, come on in and let's do this together. And really excited on everything opening up again, because we're excited to get to see you guys again. We're excited to get to do some things in the community again, and really look forward to see what God has in store for us moving forward as we come out of the funk of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been weird. Well, that's a question that's occurred to me. Like we were talking before we got on the live stream, that the pandemic lockdown has pushed a lot of ministries that are in-person ministries generally. We're basically doing Zoom calls and are doing everything online, and that can be hard, right? It's difficult to know how to minister in that format when that's not the format that you're used to doing. And I've heard one observation that sort of stuck with me. Somebody said that the pandemic restrictions can expose things that were previously hidden, right? So it can expose flaws or problems that were previously not seen. And I think that, you know, a lot of people locked up by themselves, you get to see if you got any emotional issues going on, they show up, right? And that can be really hard. I don't want to make light of that. Also, though, and as like trying to be like an organization where we're trying to minister, it also can help us give us a chance at least to sort of drill down, like, what is our core mission? Like, what are we really here for? You know, if we normally do this to express our mission, but we can't do that anymore, like, what are we really about? You know, we can become a little more creative, trying to find other ways of expressing that. So have you found like anything has clarified during the lockdown about your mission, like your reason for being? Has anything clarified that wasn't quite as clear before?
Well, I think just the personal relationships. I think it's really hard to build relationships through Zoom. Like most of the people that we've contact with on Zoom are people we knew before the pandemic. You know, we do have a couple of newer people. One specifically who we've met through the pandemic, really, and she's been at most of our meetings, and she's been able to open up about, you know, personal things with us and trust us. And so I think that it does show that you can build a relationship through that way. And then the other guy that started in our group, you know, young guy, I think his first meeting was the month before the pandemic started. But, you know, he's young, he lives locally, and his parents in another area, and he was looking for a Christian group to connect with, and he loves all this type of stuff. And he's been a part, you know, he's been showing up for all the small amount of things that we've been able to do as a group. He's been there for most of them. And so that's encouraging too.
I think one kind of interesting blessing that's come out of the pandemic, and we were sharing a little bit about this before we got started, was we have had some really close friends and members of the group who've moved away. And when you're only meeting in person, you know, we kind of felt like we lost that connection with them. But when we started doing the Zoom, because it doesn't matter where you live when you're Zooming, we were able to reconnect with those people again. And I think it actually sparked a lot of encouragement for both Joe and I that, listen, our vision to move this out of just San Diego is actually re-sparked again, because we know that those folks that did move away do still have an interest. We can encourage them and keep in touch with them during Zoom. We can plug them back in. And so for me, that's been a real blessing to be able to reconnect with those folks again and know that we can keep encouraging them in what they're doing wherever they are.
Yeah, and we've talked, you know, about, you know, we have the second one in Anaheim, but we've, you know, dreamed that we could have, you know, another group somewhere else, because, you know, I think even if it's not identical to what we're doing, but maybe it's a, you know, brother or sister group or something that's a little different. And by us having the Zoom to open it up, I think it's like Jeannie was saying, encouraging the people that have moved away that maybe, you know, they do the Zoom call with us and invite one friend, and maybe that's where it starts, right? The seed. Okay, I've invited one friend, and now I've got 3 friends coming to the Zoom meeting. Hey, you guys want to try to do this, start this on our own? I mean, that's kind of, it helps at least kind of show a blueprint of how things are going. And, you know, if one person leaves our area and knows kind of how our group works, it's hard to build something. But if you have a couple people that start to see kind of the infrastructure of, okay, this is kind of what our Bible studies are a little, you know, they're not a traditional Bible study. They're, you know, we usually do a quiz for a prize, and the quiz is usually half whatever the subject matter is for the geek, and then the other half is usually Bible, and, you know, winner gets some swag or whatever. And then we do, you know, we do our Bible study. We kind of phase in with nerd talk, do our quiz, do our Bible study, and then phase out with nerd talk and whatever events we got coming up, or whatever events people are interested in doing, or what movies we want to do over the next, you know, the next year or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's fun, you know, we talk about all kinds of things in our Bible study. And
well, one of the things that we really talked a lot about when we were pulling together the nonprofit was to keep our structure basic enough where it's geek and it's God focused, but also broad enough to take in various kinds of geekiness. We happen to really enjoy the cosplay. The Anaheim group really enjoys the gaming and the board games, and yet the structure is certainly flexible enough to let a group have its own geeky flavor and still be Geeky Guys for God, because our basic structure is very, very God focused and geek focused. And then from there, it's pretty much however, it needs to be for the group of people.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, so what would you say? I'm thinking of, let's say you met somebody who, or somebody overheard this conversation and was wondering like, well, how can I get involved with something like that? Maybe there's two people. One person lives in your area and then one person doesn't live in your area. What would you say to, like, let's take one and then the other. Like, what would you say to them about how they might be able to connect with what you guys do? What would you say to them?
Well, I think for starters, they could start, number one, they could get on the Zoom calls. They can send us a message, email or a Facebook message. And a few people that have joined the group through the years, when we've seen that interest, we've kind of, for lack of a better word, recruited them. We went, hey, this guy seems interested in this group. Two of us go, hey, let's take him to coffee. Let's go to Starbucks and just kind of talk to him and get an idea of who he or she is and where they, what their nerd fandom is. Like, if we even find out that, maybe we send, one of the people that we know this person likes Star Wars. We send a couple of people that really like Star Wars so that they can see, okay, we can have this conversation. If it's something else, maybe we send a couple other people. But I think, starting that connection and maybe, building a relationship with them. Now that things are opening back up, there are a lot of people in our group that have been invited, and at first they're like, no, I'm not ready. But at some point they decided, okay, I'm gonna show up, and then they never leave. I mean, so that's really what happened with a lot of our group. I can think of Brian, who's the treasurer for our nonprofit, and he'd been meaning to come, and he just decided one time he was going to come, and now he's he's doing cosplay and he's building baby Groot costume for his son, and cool beaker costume that the kids really love at Ronald McDonald House. I mean, so it's just like, and I think it also is a comfort level. Like, there are some people in our group that, I'd like to build a costume, but I don't know how. And so it's like, that's another avenue for us. Like, Jeannie can sew anything. And, my son and I have built, Hulk, full-on Hulk and full-on Groot costumes, some other different things smaller than that. So, if you want to build a costume, we have the people in our group that can guide you the right way and help you, and that's also just a connecting point, and
Joe, what is our Facebook page for folks if they wanted to
I think
get
it's
on our
GG4G God, I think.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get that, because that's the best way really to reach out to us right now.
And we just
have an email address.
We have an email address. It's Geeky Guys, the number 4 God at gmail.com. And then the Facebook group, I think it's GG4G God Facebook group, and we're working on the site, and we, I've got things that I'm behind on getting pictures to the guy that's going to build a website, but we're hoping to eventually get this website and built up and be able to provide a little more stuff out there for people to see. But our Facebook, if you go to our Facebook group, you pretty much can see our story, because there are a lot of pictures through the years for different events, and you can even see like some of the, like even my son and a few of the other guys that started coming with their dad when they were a certain height, and now they're adults. And so you can see their progression of, kind of tell you the story of how we progressed as well through the years, and showing us me older and things like that. But
and as we start doing events again, we were already planning on, when do we want to go see Black Widow? What are we going to do if Comic-Con actually, at the November event? What do we want to have a fan table? What do we want to do? As those events start rolling out, we'll definitely be posting those on the Facebook page. We post what our monthly is, I think our Zoom call information on the Facebook page.
Well, it has been in the past,
Yeah.
but usually when we'll do, yeah.
So, it's kind of right now our one-stop shop for, it doesn't matter if you live in Texas or if you live here in San Diego, you can go to the Facebook page and kind of see what's going to be coming up. It's been kind of sparse with the pandemic, but we're already talking about what kinds of things we want to get going on.
Yeah, and also we usually will send in 1 or 2 emails out a month about things happening. So if someone wanted to join the email group, we just add them to our email list, and then when we send out the email, they'll get it. Most of the time, if the Zoom is not in the Facebook, it's in the email address. Like to click in. It's pretty much been the same one throughout the pandemic. I just keep changing the date on it. So.
All right. Well, that's so one thing I wanted to jump on, because you mentioned the church you guys are a part of. It sounds to me like they're fairly supportive, which is great. I've heard of people whose churches just don't know what to do with the geek membership. So it sounds like you may just have really unusual leadership, but let's say there's somebody out there who's part of a church and thinks what you guys are doing is great, and they're trying to think of how to approach the leadership to try to get something like this going. What would you say to somebody like that? Do you have any suggestions or tips for that?
Well, I think a lot of it, is just communicating, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, like trust me, we have gone through a lot of different things with the leadership. The leadership has been very supportive of us through the years. But also we're at a point, with nonprofit where we're looking not only to do things within our home church, but partnering with other churches in the area that want to do something that maybe our church isn't doing anymore or hasn't thought of, or, but I would say, reach out to us. We can for sure talk to whoever would like to talk about it. I mean, we're around. We could help them talk to membership. We could even reach out to one of the pastors at CRB that was and is supportive of what we've done through the years. I always use it as an example. So Pastor Ken at our CRB has always been supportive of our group. And there was one time we went and saw The Force Awakens, and this is how I equated. So we're standing in line to go in. This is the same pastor that went at midnight, by the way, to see episode 1 with us. He's in line with his wife, who's also a pastor at the church. And one of the guys in our group is older guy, and he says, "Hey, Pastor Ken, I didn't know you were into this kind of stuff." And he says, "I'm not into this kind of stuff. I'm into this kind of stuff." And he kind of like makes a circle around all the people that are there together. Meaning for me, I'm supportive of like-minded Christians doing stuff together and supporting each other. And like kind of, he's not a nerd, he's not a geek, but he gets the fellowship piece of it. He gets the, reaching out to people piece of it. And that, like you're saying, a lot of leadership at pastors, you have to get past that, because we're there. I mean, at the core of our group is love, just like your group. It's about Jesus' love, and if you do things out of love, good things are going to happen, and, God's going to pave the way for you. And so, that's kind of the genesis of it, is that being a fan of, people getting together and building those relationships.
I also want to make sure it's clear, not all of us attend CRB.
Yeah.
And I think that was also God's way of kind of expanding the vision a little bit. When I attend a completely different church, and that church is big, and geeky stuff may or may not fit in, but maybe once in a while, but I don't know that they would be able to have a large enough group to support its own geeky ministry. But we certainly can take folks from that church, plug them into our group, And if something comes up, then, we're available to help that church support whatever thing that they're doing. If they did like a summer movie night
Or a
and
trunk or treat or something.
needed, superheroes, or they wanted to do a Star Wars night or Star Wars themed service or whatever, I'd certainly be going, I can help with that, and, kind of connect our groups. But we probably have at least 4 or 5 churches represented in our group now. It's not just that's one core church any longer.
And I think that's what's important too, because like Jeannie's saying, there are some churches that just either don't have the population or the demographic population to run one on its own. But if you have one that can support other churches, and we don't get caught up in what the church is, because the church is not the building, it's the people, right? And it's like what does Odin say in Ragnarok when he says it's Asgard is not a place, it's a people. Well, I believe that's very similar as far as the church goes. The church is the people. The church isn't the building. I mean, and so if the pandemic hasn't taught us anything else, it's shown us that we haven't been able to go into buildings for a year, a lot of us, but you're still having church, right? And so it's the people, and so that's, I think, is what's important. Maybe you have a friend at one church and a friend at another church, and they decide to do it together, and they reach out and to both sides, both different churches, and work at something out. But we definitely are around, and we've seen a lot of the different things, so we could definitely help as far as that goes, and even support as far as going, being in a meeting or sharing a presentation on what we've done through the years that makes it, here we are supporting God in ways that, when we first started with the group, we had these great bright shirts, like I said. We got the looks when you wore that shirt to church, and you got the looks when you went to Comic-Con wearing that shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, you get it on both sides. But the mission, you don't forget what the mission is for God, is that you're there to spread his love. And if somebody, and as long as you're wearing that shirt and you're representing God and you're showing love and being positive, good things are going to happen. You're not going to have people looking at you going, who's these guys? So you're showing it, right? I mean, I always equate it to the signs, at Comic-Con and other places that blast, telling you you're going to hell because you go to Comic-Con.
Right.
I would just say nice t-shirt, nice costume, and have a sign that says Jesus loves you. You're going to get a totally different reaction out of 99% of those people, right?
Yeah. That's a great point, because it's almost like it's almost like having credentials, right? If you're talking to somebody else in the geek world, and they might look at you really oddly if you say you're a Christian, but if you say I'm a fan of the Avengers too, or I'm a fan of Star Wars too, hey, it's all of a sudden it's oh, you become a real person. You're so it opens doors, I think, and that's really cool. So we're running out of time, so we're at the end of our time, I guess. So I will say that we'll just I'll make sure I get the links that you guys mentioned for the Facebook pages. I'll put that in the post so people can follow those. Does anything else stick out to you guys that you want to say before we go, or mention or comment on?
No, I mean, I think just, if you're out there and you're curious about our group or starting something, or you can always reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help support you in any way possible. We can do a Zoom like this and talk about things, and we've got a good balance of people in our group, and we're just here, and we're always looking for new people, that new ideas, and enthusiasm for we do and things we don't even know we, are meant to do that God hasn't put in front of us yet. So,
For
Oh,
me,
that's a-
I
Sorry, go
encourage
ahead.
anybody out there, what encouraged me was you can be a geek and you can be a Christian, and they are not mutually exclusive. You can be both. And come on and join us. We'll show you how it all works.
So something occurred to me, and I'm just curious if there's any, because like you mentioned, being a Christian and being a geek can seem to some, I've been there, where it doesn't seem like those two worlds mix. And the questions of trying to genuinely wrestle through that. Some people will just say that and they just say it frivolously. Some people are like, I don't know how to make these things to play together nicely. Have you guys run across any resources specifically that you could recommend for people? Like, one of the reasons that those worlds don't mesh is, like, theologically, the theology that some people will have and can seem like they don't mesh. So is there any resources regarding, like, the biblical theology that shows how the two connect and shows that they're not mutually exclusive? Is there anything you guys
There are most of the stuff that I've seen. I've Alpha Omega Con got some really good sources. You have to kind of sift through and try and remember all the books. There were some really, really good resources there in Alpha Omega. And I know Joe and I both happy to have good discussion on those points, right? And good, bad, indifferent. And there's some good Facebook groups that I belong to that have some really good, deep discussion about those topics. Some of them can get a little polarizing, so you got to be kind of careful. But I know our group, just about anybody you could sit down and talk to, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the tough stuff, and we'll hash it through.
Excellent. Well, awesome. Well, thank you very, very, very much, both of you, for taking the time and joining us. And I hope we will see each other again in person sometime very soon.
Yes,
that would be great.
We miss all of you guys.
Yeah. Soon. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, and we'll continue the conversation in the future. So
thank you so much.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Take care.